Inverclyde Council's education, part of the Education and Communities Committee. Again, this meeting is being held remotely and also in person, and will be filmed and recorded for live and subsequent broadcasts available through the Council's website. The Council is a data controller under the General Data Protection Regulations and Data Protection Act 2018. We broadcast and record Council meetings to fulfil our public task obligation to enable members of the public to observe the democratic process. Data collected during the process will be retained in accordance with Council published policies available through the Council's website. Members of the Council are reminded that they should follow the Council's established meeting protocols, including around the use of the chat facility and the comments made in the chat facility that are visible to participants in the meeting, which might include members of the public who have also been invited to the meeting. And with that, can I hand over to Anne to ask for apologies, declarations of interest and the roll call?
We have apologies from Councillor Moran, with Councillor McCluskey substituting. Convener will now move to an attendance roll call before proceeding to the declarations of interest. Can the following members please indicate if they are present at the meeting either in person or remotely? Councillor Armstrong.
Present in the chamber.
Councillor Brennan.
Present in the chamber.
Councillor Clougherty.
Present in the chamber.
Councillor Daisley.
Present in the chamber.
Councillor Law.
Present in the chamber.
Councillor McCluskey.
Present in the chamber.
Councillor Maguire.
Present remotely.
Councillor McVeigh.
In the chamber.
Councillor Quinn.
Present in the chamber.
Councillor Robertson.
Present in the chamber.
Councillor Wilson.
Present in the chamber.
Reverend Burt.
Present remotely.
Mr Docherty.
Present in the chamber.
Reverend Donaldson. And Ms McEwen.
Present remotely.
Are there any declarations of interest?
Okay, vote down. Can I firstly welcome along Kirsten Glancy from Kings Hope Primary School. Kirsten's going to be speaking on the first agenda item, which is agenda item number 7 that is right on the paper. Can I ask Michael to introduce the paper? Michael.
Through you, convener, and good afternoon, everybody. Nice to see you all. This is a report on an Education Scotland inspection that was carried out at Kings Oak Primary School, a nursery class, in the middle of September. As committee members will know, formal inspection processes were paused during the pandemic and have resumed in full this academic year. And so this was the first inspection that we have had of any of our schools since returning in August and since the resumption of the inspection process. These things never go smoothly, and the inspection was due to take place, a full inspection was due to take place. However, due to the passing of Her Majesty, the late Majesty the Queen, and the funeral taking place on what was supposed to be the first day of the inspection, and the fact that we ended up having, or we had the planned holiday on the Friday, we only had 3 days during this week. And so the inspection was changed from a full inspection where 4 quality indicators would be inspected against to a short inspection model, which was an inspection against 2 quality indicators, which the detail of which is at 4.2. The report denotes a number of key strengths in the school, which are outlined in the full report, the link of which is in the committee report, and a summarisation for you there on the first page at item 2, section 2, outlining a number of strengths across the school. The overall gradings are at 4.2, sorry, not 4.2, they're detailed at 5.12. Members will also know from previous reports that the school and the nursery class are graded separately. So the QIs are looked at distinctly from one another in the context of the primary school and the nursery class. And so a good rating was achieved for 2.3, which is learning, teaching, assessment, and against 3.2, a satisfactory grading was awarded there, and 2 satisfactories for the 2 QIs within the nursery class. I think it's also worth noting that there will be no follow through to this inspection, because the capacity to continue to improve both of the school with support from the Education Service was noted during the inspection. These reports never give the full flavour of the whole process, nor do they give the full flavour of the verbal feedback that was given to the school. And I have to say there was a lot of positivity during this inspection, and praise for Kirsten's leadership and the leadership of her leadership team in taking the school forward, and a lot of agreement between the team and the school and the authority about where the school is on its journey. And this inspection obviously comes at a moment in time in that journey, and obviously I want to give full credit to Kirsten and her team for achieving the outcomes, and recognising that there are areas for improvement, which are outlined in the report at 2.6, and we've already begun, these are already in hand. They're very much in line with the school's own improvement plan and self-evaluation, and the local authority, through various means, is continuing to work with the school to take forward these 3 areas for improvement, and we will report to parents on those areas within the school's own standards and quality reporting. So I'd like to now invite Kirsten to say a few words to committee about the report. So over to you, Kirsten.
Through you, convener, firstly I would like to thank you for inviting me today and given the opportunity to report on our recent inspection within Kingsoak Primary School and Nursery class. The inspection process has allowed us to take time as a staff team to reflect on our pursuit of excellence since November 2019, when I started my journey here. Whilst encompassing a global pandemic and ongoing recovery from this, the leadership team are immensely proud of our successes and achievements, some of which are noted in points 2.2 to 2.5 of the summary for this meeting, and also within the inspection findings. Many positive messages from stakeholders are also included in the pre-inspection summary report, also publicised as part of the inspection process. With regards to learning, teaching and assessment, other areas of good practice were highlighted as noted in points 5.6 and 5.7 of today's meeting overview. Targeted support is identified, planned, implemented and reviewed in a regular cycle, where clear outcomes and impact data inform decisions made around planned support for learners. Recovering from the global pandemic has seen the increased requirements for health and wellbeing being at the forefront of priorities for learners. I am confident this is an area of strength in Kingsoak, and should this inspection model have been the full model initially planned, I have full faith that this would have been a quality indicator graded as good. Ensuring health and wellbeing needs are met is fundamental to all we do in Kingsoak, as our learners require these needs met prior to being ready to learn. Our next steps from inspection have come from both our pre-existing school improvement plan and from inspection action points. Targeted support will continue for identified learners, encompassing raising attainment for all learners not meeting national expectation, as opposed to any identified gaps, possibly caused by poverty, as this gap is minimal in Kingsoak. Assessment, evidence and impact data remain key drivers to inform next steps and change. Teachers and PSAs, pupil support assistants, continue to have protected time to meet and discuss next steps in learning for pupils, and for these lines of communication to remain open to offer the best experiences to all learners. School-based improvements are being carefully planned for the remainder of this session and next to maximise effectiveness in raising reading and writing attainment levels. We continue to work in close partnership with the Attainment Challenge and our Attainment Advisor to plan these developments. From our existing school improvement plan, raising attainment in reading remains our priority for this session. partnership working on accessing authority professional learning in exchange for Kings Oak supporting the developments of the Inverclyde Literacy Framework have begun as per our school improvement plan available on our school website. Since the time of inspection, in-house tracking of learners has continued to develop, initially focusing on learners from groups such as English as an additional language learners or care experienced young people. This now is allowing us to filter data more effectively and give clearer statements of progress. I have remained in contact with the lead inspector and have taken steps to look outwards towards establishments identified by himself with areas of strength, particularly for learners not meeting national expectations, and how to track small steps of progress robustly for individual learners. This area of focus is ongoing. This term, staff will be audited to gain a clear profile of professional learning required around existing digital supports on offer for learners. We will be working with William Brown, the digital lead in education for this. We continue to invest pupil equity funding to increase digital resources to raise attainment. New laptops have been received from education since the inspection, plus a further 20 have been ordered, funded by PEF. As ongoing improvements to the BYOD system continue across Inverclyde, we will liaise with William Brown to ensure staff knowledge remains relevant and up to date, and further ways to enhance teaching and learning through digital prevails. Our nursery continue on their improvement journey now that our newly appointed Deputy Head of Centre has settled into her post. The verbal feedback provided at the time of inspection acknowledged the newness of this post, but also the clear trajectory that the nursery was on and in their improvement journey. Thank you.
Thanks a lot for that, Kirsten.
Very
What I'll
good.
do is I'll open up for comments or any questions. Francesca, you want to go first and then Kirsten?
Thanks very much, Convener. Thanks very much, Michael and Kirsten. I don't know if I still remember, but I worked with her very briefly during the pandemic at a childcare hub located at All Saints Primary. And I see that there's much to be positive about in this report, and I've looked also at the fuller inspection reports available online. I think one thing that struck me as part of it, and I know Kirsten's touched on it quite a bit there, is that just like we would look closely at how we assess young people, I wonder how satisfactory is an assessment process that's looking at the hardware and software within the school that's potentially out of their control. I note in section 2.6 it's seen as a priority. Senior leaders should work closely with the local authority to develop the rollout of digital technologies. Now, a lot of us here will remember that there was an SNP manifesto commitment in 2021 that all school-aged pupils across Scotland would get a laptop, Chromebook or tablet along with connectivity and free technical support. And Kirsten's kind of touched on what's been done since the inspection there through PEF funding, laptop supplies since, but as far as I know, that we're still waiting and pupils are still waiting on that manifesto commitment to be realised here in Inverclyde. So I was disappointed for the school that they were assessed through by Education Scotland on that piece when really they're struggling against a really difficult backdrop with that. Thanks.
Thanks. I think that'd be unfair of Kirsten to answer that. Maybe Michael, do you want to give a comment on that?
So through you, Convener, as members will know, the service has a digital strategy that we continue to work through. So certainly challenging times and budget constraints, but we've made good advances in improving the infrastructure we have in Inverclyde. I think this priority is more about now that the school has an improved infrastructure. It's about actually now taking that forward and supporting the staff to utilise the digital technology that they have access to in order to improve and enhance learning and teaching, which has already been evaluated as being good. And as Kirsten's outlining, she is continuing as a head to make use of her own resources to do that. So it's as much about training and support for teachers and support staff to improve their confidence in utilising digital technology as much as it is about actually improving the infrastructure. As in regards to the comment about the manifesto commitment, we await further updates on that, and we continue as a service to utilise the resources that we've got to best effect when it comes to digital technology.
Thanks, Michael. Kirsty.
Thank you. I welcome the positive overall results, and you can tell from all your words today how much hard work's gone into continually improving the school environment for your kids, so thank you for that. I'd just like to know if it's possible for us to be updated on the improvements, given that there's not going to be another visit until the next cycle of inspections, to ensure that those results that were satisfactory are indeed improving in a timely fashion.
I'll bring Michael first forward. Stand up, Michael.
So, through you, convener. So I think, as I stated, that there won't be an official follow through to this. And what we will be doing is working with the school, and as per usual, what the school will be required to do is produce a standards and quality report, which will be published at the very latest by October, but knowing Kirsten, it will be done well before then. And in that standards and quality report, the school has to give an evaluation against the quality indicators. And so that will be in the public domain from the school, and that will allow everyone to assess the progress that's been made against the inspection report.
Okay, thank you.
Lynn first and then Elizabeth.
Yeah, thanks. Thanks, Michael and Kirsten, sorry. I'm just wondering if this is scarier than the inspection, or if it's so actually coming here and reporting to ourselves. But thanks for the update. It's always good to, for this report, we know there's areas for improvement, so it's really good to hear about what the detail of what they are, and we receive that reassurance that that these are in place. So it was really good to talk. I'm glad Councillor Brennan raised the fact about the digital technologies, because I wasn't sure where it was a hardware issue, a software issue, or a digital skills gap issue. So clearly, if we're talking about digital skills, really, something that has been identified in Inverclyde, that we probably have a digital skills gap in general, our population. It's really good that we're looking at those sort of digital skills for our really, really early on, because these skills are going to be essential for our future. So it's really good that that's on board. And I would assume as a local authority and not the school really needs to help with that and help our schools with that. So it's reassuring to hear that that's what's happening. I've just got a kind of general question about an inspection post-COVID. Is there a general trend that, a lot of areas, in terms of attainment and other things, clearly are going to be impacted by COVID when our kids have not been actually in the school? So I'm just trying to get that sense that is COVID having an impact on what we're seeing here, and is there something, probably the answer is going to be no, I know by the inspections, but is there a bit in there to recognise, that it's immediately post-COVID, and that's been built in? Thanks.
Again, I'll let Michael comment on that, because it's probably a general comment.
Yeah.
Michael.
Yeah, through you, convener. So I will ask Kirsten to make comment on it, but I think the school, the inspection starts, I'm going to traumatise poor Kirsten putting her back in there, but the inspection starts with a presentation from the head of the school to the team. And not only was Kirsten telling the story of the journey of the school, she was also conveying the COVID story as well, and outlining the impact that had on the school. There was additional advice given to the inspectorate in schools about cognizance of the COVID context that schools were in. We have certainly got some emerging analysis coming from Education Scotland from inspection activity, including Kings Oak over the autumn term. It's still quite early days in terms of the actual number of inspections, but the overall majority of gradings seem to be sitting in and around sort of satisfactory to very good bracket. And obviously there's a whole raft of them being published today, in fact. So broadly speaking, the feedback seems to be from both local authorities, heads and the inspector themselves, but more I think from those from the receiving end of inspection, that cognizance has been taken of the COVID context. But obviously the further forward we move away from COVID, that possibly becomes less of something that we can consider in the contextual information. Although I have to say, I was speaking to heads last week, and it pains to say that there are other factors that are still affecting us. COVID is still there. Attendance in schools continues to be a challenge in respect of Strep A, for example, pre-Christmas, staff absence. These are still all factors, although we're not technically in a pandemic, and schools are doing their absolute level best to respond to that. I don't know if Kirsten wants to comment as the person that was the central figure in this, of whether or not she felt that the inspectorate took cognizance of the context that the school had been in.
Through you, convener, I think yes, there was an acknowledgement around the work that's happened in COVID and the focus that has taken place on recovery. I suppose that very much though, coming out of recovery, what the inspectorate team are looking for is how closely are schools attaining to their pre-COVID levels, and that was the kind of context of lots of conversations that took place around attainment, around where are you pre-COVID and how are you recovering, and are those interventions appropriate?
Elizabeth?
Thanks, Mira. I know that an inspection is only ever really a snapshot in time. It's kind of where things are at any given point in a particular week. The inspectors chuck up at your school and terrify the life out of everybody. Fully aware of that. But what I felt more than I've felt in a long time when I was reading this report is I wanted a bit more context. I wanted to kind of know what the previous Kings Oak report had been like, and my memory's not that good, so I went onto the education website to see what the previous report was. And there's nothing, I don't think we hold old reports. It's only ever the most current report that's available, and therefore, whilst I'm fully aware that today's Celtic players are not the Lisbon Lions, they've got the same name, they're a Celtic team, but it's a different set of players. I know that we have different teachers, different pupils, different parents, as schools progress through the years, but I would kind of like to have seen the previous report just to kind of get the context of where things are, and I'm disappointed that I don't have access to that.
Michael?
So through you, convener, I also feel your pain, Elizabeth, because one of my jobs is to try and anticipate when the next inspection of a school will be, and within that try to target our support through our peer review programme, and historically that isn't kept. I do know that the last inspection of Kings Oak was approximately 2009, 2010. I don't have a copy of that report, and as you can see from the Education Scotland website, those previous documents are not there. But a lot, as you acknowledge, that's one of the big challenges in Scottish education at the moment, and something I think is under some form of review is the time in between inspections, and certainly at the moment, from the intelligence we have, what is a key factor in determining who comes next in that cycle of inspection is the date of the prior inspection. But again, I think there are still schools out there nationally where potentially the prior inspection dates back even further than Kings Oak. I know of one school in another authority before Christmas. The last time it had an inspection was 2007, 2008. So that's a long time in between two inspections. A lot can happen, and I would be cautious then about comparing, and also the model would have been quite different too, and also the quality indicator framework would have been different as well. So it would be difficult to actually do a comparison.
Ruth, do you want to comment? Okay. Is there any other questions? David?
Thank you, convener. Kirsten, this was a good inspection. My congratulations to you and your leadership team. Keep up the good work. This must be really very difficult coming after 2 years of the pandemic. But my question is really for Michael, and it follows on from Councillor Brennan and Councillor Quinn, and it's regarding 2.6 and the areas highlighted by Education Scotland for improvement. And it's the third one there, the third bullet point. As a priority, senior leaders should work closely with the local authority to develop the rollout of digital technologies across the school and nursery. The digital and the IT world is not our strong suit as a council. And my question is, Michael, do you feel that we've got the IT capacity to allow us to satisfy this request from Education Scotland?
So through you, convener, I think the IT infrastructure in the authority and the schools is improving, Councillor Wilson. Obviously, we've made significant inroads in the last few months by replacing almost all now teacher devices. So that's the device that the teacher's using at the front of the class linked to their interactive whiteboard to teach, and that has been replenished, and I know that's made a huge difference just even in the speed of those new devices. The refresh is ongoing. We were updating head teachers about that last week, and so it's not perfect, but it is improving, and we've prioritised making sure that teachers in classrooms have got access to devices that are as up to date as they can be, given the budgetary constraints we've got. I think the piece of work that I think this is referring to is about utilising that improving infrastructure to then ensure that staff feel confident to take forward learning and teaching, not just by being proficient in the use of the technology at the front of the classroom, but also the IT that the pupils have access to is being utilised to best effect to improve learning and teaching. So it's a journey that we're on. We have a strategy that we're working our way through, and the situation is improving.
Thank you, Michael. That's reassuring.
Kirsten?
Yeah, just further on from David's comments there, I just wondered if there's any schools that have particular issues around like Wi-Fi connection, because if we're going to have all these devices connecting to the one network, are you aware of any like shortfalls in terms of that infrastructure?
Michael, would you like to comment?
Yes, through you, convener. Reference is made to William Brown. William's an interim education officer for the digital, and we have a very clear oversight of the schools in terms of their not only. I'm literally talking down to individual computers. I mean, we know where the single devices are that are most in need of replenishment at the moment. We've got a lot of detail working in conjunction with our colleagues in IT on that. I have a regular fortnightly meeting with William and Alan MacDonald and Marjorie Tate in IT to overview progress that we're making and continuously reprioritising where we need to go. We've done further audits with schools to get an up-to-date picture. So the answer is yes, we've got a very good handle on where particular issues are. Sometimes it's not connectivity or the spread of Wi-Fi in the building that's the issue. It can be, as I alluded to there, the actual age of a machine that's causing the issue. And once the machine is replenished, the connectivity is absolutely as it should be. But I mean, there are always ongoing issues, and the minute you IT take an action to upgrade part of the system, it can have unthought through consequences. So there's a really good relationship with IT in taking this forward.
Thank you.
Okay, Kirsty. If there's no other questions, it just leaves up to me. Kirsten, can I thank you very much? I can understand that when you're going through the report and you've got all these fantastic stuff you want to show the assessors, and then all of a sudden it's cut short and you've got a lot shorter report time, and then you get that report on it and you say, if only you could see this, or if only you could have seen that. So I feel you're playing in some circumstances of what you go through as a school head. But can you please take our thanks to yourself and to your staff and to the children in the school as well for the work that you are doing and the work that they put into the daily process. And can I ask for a wee please give us a good bill back to Council for it. So fine. And that means you don't need to stay for the rest of the committee meeting. You can go off. I'm sure you're a very busy person. So thanks a lot. Can we move on to agenda item number 7, which is the revenue report? And I'm going to ask Mary to start. Mary?
Yes, thank you, Convener. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Yeah, okay. This report is the regular revenue monitoring report to the 31st of October for the education side of the committee. The current projection is an overspend of 92,000. Together with the overspend in communities we discussed earlier, the overall projection is currently 162,000 overspent. However, it is anticipated the committee to outturn within budget when income for New Scots is factored in, and also just to assure committee that the corporate director and heads of service are continuing to review areas where spend can be reduced to ensure this is the case. More details of the projected variance are contained in the report at section 3.3 and appendix 3, and at section 3.5 and appendix 4 the committee's earmarked reserves are updated. Again, committee are asked to note the projected outturn and that the management team are reviewing areas where non-essential spend can be reduced as well as income maximised in order to bring the committee back on budget. Happy to take any questions.
Thank you for that, Mary. I hope not. I can see Pam and Martin. Pam, you want to come in first?
Thanks, Convener. I have a question in relation to 3.3. It's item D, and it seems that there's a £209,000 overspend for additional support needs transport. Now, that's not an insignificant amount, and I wonder if it's possible to have a bit more detail about that. I mean, for example, what is the actual budget if there's a £209,000 overspend in it, and what, if anything, can we be doing to reduce that? Thank you.
I'll let Mary comment and possibly Tony comment as well.
Through you, Convener, the transport budget is 352,000. So, I mean, it is a significant overspend. I think it's 59% over. So I don't know if you want to take on what can be done.
Tony, would you want to comment on that?
Yeah, so in terms of the ASN transport, because it's demand led, it's difficult to project what it would actually be each year, and often we have to respond pretty quickly to transport requests, and sometimes they can't be accommodated by, I suppose, the most efficient way, which would be sharing a bus, for example. So we do have a lot of transport requests made that are probably taxis, short-term contracts as well, to get families over a particular crisis. So and you know, Councillor Armstrong, we have discussed some of the SN bus issues before, but we always try and achieve best value and make sure we can share taxis and share buses wherever we can, and we try and work with SPT to get the most efficient journeys planned, and it's not always possible. So I think what we're seeing here is just in a correlation with the increase in specific needs, with an increase in ASN transport having to be provided also.
Thank you very much. Can I just ask on top of that, is much of this or all of this in terms of out of authority transport, or is it within the Inverclyde? Thank you.
Tony, I'll let you come in first, and then if Ruth wants to add in to it, come in.
Absolutely, most of it will be inter-authority and within the authority transport, but we obviously do have to transport people from with the area as well, depending on the circumstances. But the majority of the cost is within Inverclyde.
Ruth, you want one?
Yeah, just to build on Tony's answer, to say that the majority of it is within Inverclyde. There's various aspects to the ASN transport provision. It's where children are taken to specific schools out of the catchment area, and that will change from year to year. Although having said that, the ASN transport has had a historic underspend for the last three to 4 years, simply transport has got more expensive as well. So you see the budget has gone up, but we've brought down the consortium overspend, which was typically overspent £50,000–60,000 a year. People remember from last year, that's been brought down. So the committee's always managed within the budget somehow to bring it in back on within the budget, but the ASN part of it, Councillor Armstrong has historically had a slight overspend, just because we can't anticipate provision.
Thanks very much.
So just on the back of that, I suppose the question is it, do we call that a budget pressure? We're going through the budgets just now, numerous pressures. Do we expect that that's a one-off anomaly for this year? Or is it the case of we're going to be building in extra for next year's budget for the ASN transport? Or are we going to be faced, if we get the same again next year, will we be back to the committee with an overspend in the ASN transport? Don't know if you can help us in that one. Mayor?
Yeah, through you, convener, there is no pressure built in at the moment for ASN transport. So that would be a further pressure on the budget if we do consider that to be a pressure.
So yes, we've been able to contain it. So again, it's offset by other typical underspends.
Okay, sorry, I just thought. Martin.
Thanks, convener. In a similar vein to Pam's question a moment ago, I was just wondering what the more than double for Gaelic transport is. Like, the budget was 40,000, projection in here is 87,000. So I'm just wondering what's going on there. The other thing, just in the other direction in terms of underspend, is on Breakfast Club income, which were 64% underspent, and I would have thought that at this point in time, with cost of living crisis, breakfast clubs would have been something that people would have wanted to take it up. I'm just wondering if there's something that I'm missing here in terms of the breakfast club income. Thanks.
I'll bring this.
So with interest, first one about Gaelic transport, remember that's got now the primary built into it. So previously we owned secondary Gaelic transport, now we've done primary and secondary. Right. We said we anticipated being able to contain it within the committee's budget. So we've now created a catchment area for primary Gaelic, so that will be included, as well as an increase in the bus price for secondary as well. The second one about Breakfast Club income, that was an income target set when we began to introduce the £1 charge, and that of course was pre-COVID. So, but we did see a drop off when people, when the charge was introduced, even though, and that was overall in Breakfast Club usage, even though people were free school meals and didn't have to pay, we saw a drop off in the attendance. Of course, children go with pals, so if pals are going, then you'll see where we can see trends. Then COVID happened, and I don't think and Tony will perhaps come in on this, I don't think we've seen the return to breakfast clubs that we previously had seen. Now you can understand why some of that is because of flexible working patterns, so the parents who were relying on it for childcare perhaps don't anymore, and we have seen just not a worrying decline, but a decline in use of breakfast clubs, but I'll perhaps bring Tony a bit.
Tony?
Yeah, absolutely agree with what Ruth had said there. And yeah, the COVID had quite a significant impact on Breakfast Club usage because, as Ruth said, people had managed to work from home, things like that. They didn't have to require the childcare. And this, I mean, obviously this is anecdotally, this is what we think has happened. So the numbers have certainly dropped off in recent times, and we're hoping to try and recover them. But we are at the, it's a difficult one to predict because parents will either use it or they won't. It won't be like school attendance where they have to do it. So the drop off with the £1 charge, then COVID, and then people trying to get back into the pattern of dropping their kids off early when they're actually more flexible working is having an impact.
Thank you. Thanks, yeah.
Lynn?
Yeah, thanks. So I've just got a question under 3.3c. So the underspend of 20,000 for sanitary products, which is 22% of the budget. So I just looking for some commentary under that, and if there's any plans to try and get that back on the target points.
Ruth, you want to take it?
So, Mary, you're right here. I don't think it's sanitary products as such. Is this linked to the actual contracts we have, or is this linked? Is the sanitary products linked to the free sanitary products?
My understanding is it's the free sanitary products.
Okay, so in that case, Hugh can come in on this because it's his team that are looking at this, and I know we're got a plan in place.
Hugh?
For yourself, convener, the reason there's a projected underspend at the moment is due to an underspend to carry forward last year. So we're actually spent more money this year than we have previous years. So we've still got £20,000 and we're still working through that. We're on budget. So there's not a decrease in it. It's just because we had a major underspend carry forward last year. So I think we've actually spent over £100,000 in free product, and we're still looking how to spend remaining going forward.
So I think that probably the reassurance that Lynn and the committee is looking for is you're content that our free sanitary products are getting used to, as we expected that we would be. There is a demand there for them.
Yeah, there's a full robust programme now delivering across all the communities and also in the school settings. So we've got a full robust programme in there, and I'm satisfied that we hopefully spend the remaining money. If not, we'll carry it forward to next financial year.
Okay, thanks, Lynn.
Yeah, it's just that up from the Appendix 3, that's not clear that the £20,000 come from last year, because that's just grown from 22-23. I think there was 89 and we've spent 69. So there's just a, that doesn't meet with what the appendix is telling me.
Mary?
Yeah, through convener, we'll certainly look into that for period 11 monitoring. We'll get you and my team will look into that.
Okay,
thanks.
Fancy anything in the chat? David?
Yeah, just a comment, convener, on ASN transport. SPT handles mainstream transport for the schools and 12 councils, but ASN transport is usually managed by councils themselves with their own vehicles. There has, throughout the whole of the west of Scotland earlier on this year, been a shortage of drivers, various problems with capacity, and it's meant that more and more councils have had to use taxis to transport ASN pupils to school. So we're not the only council, to my knowledge, that's above budget, and some councils really got themselves into quite a mess, and we've 2 councils with ASN transport. So it may sound like a big overspend, but actually we've come out of it okay. Thank you, convener.
Thanks for your comments, David. There's no, Francesca,
No, I'm sorry, convener. I think it was just a comment on the breakfast clubs. I think that issue sums up really the challenges that officers really have in terms of this local authority budget and workload management. Because I know from very recent experience that politicians like myself and Jim have responded to the stated demand in Ward 4. We've seen a gap in terms of breakfast clubs. we've spoken to parents, we've then spoken to officers and encouraged them to set up a new breakfast club for the purposes of universality and really wanting that sort of childcare looked at, the cost of living crisis, looking at breakfast being given, and then officers will always recruit staff, survey parents, set dates, pick days, and then the response really varies and it waxes and wanes with the wanes. And I think that just shows kind of how challenging it really is to bring these papers and these budgets in. It's very difficult. Thanks.
Thanks for your comment. Can we read the contents of the report?
Great.
We move to appendix number 8, which is the education capital programme progress. Eddie?
Yeah, thanks, convener. And it's a relatively short report. Gourock Primary School, the main contract for the extension was completed just before the Christmas break. And as noted within the report there, we are currently negotiating the final account with the main contractor. It's a particularly difficult project to conclude, and we are funding that overspend from a combination of our completing site allowances and from our life cycle fund, and that work will continue, including the resolution of the original contract and performance bonds, with a final report back to committee at the appropriate time. In terms of the general life cycle works, there's a further update in the appendix 2, just to give a flavour of what we're doing across the estate. And we're currently programming the work for the coming financial year. In terms of the 1140 hours expansion, the last of that budget is being closed out with the last 2 projects at Weemsbury Nursery Class and Kings Oak Nursery Class, and we're looking to try to conclude those 2 prior to the end of the current financial year. Happy to take any questions.
Thanks a lot, Eddie. I'll bring Martin in first. Martin.
Thanks, Convener. Just a quick one, Eddie. You touched on it in your remarks there, but just on Gourock Primary, it's great to see it largely completed now. But what is the likelihood of actually being able to recover some of that money from the contractors? Is this what's going to be covered in a future report, or is there any likelihood of us actually being able to recover any of that overspend?
Through you, convener, the kind of current contractor, we don't recover monies from that contractor because he's been delayed on site due to the complexities of taking on a job that was partially completed and trying to complete it. The original contract where the contractor went into administration, there was a performance bond as part of that contract, and we engaged with that bondsman to try and recover that. So that is potentially recoverable. But we have to go through a process of arranging the final account for the complete works and then negotiating with the bondsman to try to get that money back. So there's potential recovery through that original performance bond, but on the current contract, there's nothing recoverable on that one.
Thanks.
Francesca?
It was also on Gourock Primary, thanks, Convener, just to say that's really great to hear that it's been substantially completed. I worked at Gourock Primary through a lot of the work being done and where we might have lacked, as we're discussing there, or we've got digital challenges, there certainly were construction challenges for the young people who were there through the experience. It was a really unique learning opportunity for children, young people and staff to see a living, breathing building site as we were there. So I just want to say thanks very much to everybody involved in that project. And then say my best wishes to the Gourock Primary School community as they enjoy that great refurbished school. Thanks.
Okay, Lynn?
Yeah, just to add to that, I'm sure Eddie will enjoy a night's sleep now after the pain of being through this project and the stop start. So enjoy your sleep. Right?
and I think for me, as we talked about the communities part of the agenda earlier on, there are certain projects that you just wanted to see getting over the line. And Gourock Primary School was one of these projects. So Eddie, as I've said before, these capital programme reports are now as thin as they've ever been in my time over the last 15 years. And it's testimony to you and the team and the whole educational estate, the workplace stage where we're now looking at expanding, but I actually looking at how we can do things differently, and we're looking at how we can improve education and education estate. So just to again thank you, Eddie, and pass on my thanks to all your team. No doubt the next report will be as thin, but we've got the look forward to the future now as well, how we can improve our approach. So with that in mind, can we agree the recommendations?
Great.
And again, we now move on to item number 9, which is quite an in-depth report. It's the general update report. There's an awful lot in it, so I'll let Michael speak to the report for us. Michael.
Thank you, through you, convener. Yes, there's quite a bit in here. There are 5 sections to the report. I think Ruth might take 2 of them, but I'll just give a brief overview first, and then hand over to Ruth. I'm not intending on going through all of it. Section 3.1 is an update on Cade Inspectorate inspection outcomes. So a bit like the Education Scotland, the full resumption has happened since August of Cade Inspectorate unannounced visits, and we've had 2 reports, inspections carried out and published. That's Craigmarloch, the Onesery. That's the early years provision within Craigmarloch School. And you'll see across the 4 areas looked at, the 4 areas were all graded as very good. And Rainbow Family Centre also in October had an unannounced inspection, and across those 4 areas they were also graded as very good. We've got 2 more that took place, St Francis Primary School Nursery Class and Bluebird Family Centre, but those final reports have been agreed, but they're not published and in the public domain yet. Expect them hopefully to be reported to committee in March. We gave it section 3.5 some links to updates around the Scottish Attainment Challenge, which includes the Stretch Aims publication. So 3.7, there was a link to our own Strategic Equity Fund plan, as well as the local Stretch Aims, which were published just at the start of December. Ruth might want to say something about that just in a moment. At 3.9, there's also an update on the ongoing process of consultation regarding education and qualification reform update. Essentially, the update is that both the consultations have now closed. All stakeholders have responded to them. There's currently at a 3.11 work being done to work up strategic operating models in respect of these reformed bodies, particularly the Inspectorate and the Qualifications Agency. I haven't got any further updates about what they look like yet, and there's further consultation to come on the back of the work that's been done so far. So we're kind of in a kind of state of trying to I suppose analyse the consultation feedback that's been gathered, and as soon as we've got more, possibly in March, we'll be able to share that with committee. At 3.14, just to signpost members to the fact that the annual publication of ACEL data, Achievement of a Level data, was published nationally on the 13th of December. Obviously, a lot of what is in that publication was briefed to members at the annual members briefing on our outcomes, which we've already shared, but obviously that gives you an indication of where we are. Certainly from having a look at it, we can see that, and we know this ourselves from what we shared with you, that we have made good ground in recovering across the broad general education. Not quite back to where we were in 2019, as Kirsten alluded to, but getting close. In some areas, we have actually exceeded where we were and possibly got our best ever outcomes, particularly in talking and listening. And in comparison to where we sit nationally, it's a very positive picture for us, as outlined there in 3.14. And then finally at 3.15, there's information on a consultation that's underway on the transference of functions of Education Appeal Committee to the Scottish Tribunal Service. And again, I think Ruth might want to say something about that. So I'll hand over to Ruth maybe to go back to the Stretch Aims at 3.5 and the consultation on the Tribunal Service.
Yes.
Yes, so the local government Stretch Aims, and just to say there is not one single measure that you can use to judge the performance of young people, and it would be inappropriate to do so. And you will see the complexity of all the different measures we use when we give you the briefings, because there's a lot of factors to be taken into account. So when we look at measures such as the amount of children achieving 1 level 5 or 1 level 6, it is. We need to take a snapshot. It's a snapshot of what something looks like. And what I would urge members of the committee to do is to follow that link into the local stretchings and to see in price performance, because you will see that we have our areas that are performing incredibly well at 1+, in fact right across the board, but especially at 1 at level 5, 1 at level 6, and in the attainment gap. When you compare ourselves to across the country, Inverclyde, as always, is doing incredibly well. We have to be very careful when we discuss stretch aims about saying the amount of ambition of where somebody wants to be is not equated to the ability to get there. And I suppose, in my opinion, we are a service who knows ourselves well. We have head teachers who run our schools very, very well, as we've seen earlier. And year upon year, we come with improvements. I think there is a dangerous narrative about lack of ambition because people haven't given big enough stretch aims. It's a little bit like me. I can run a 5K in 33 minutes. If I say, right, I'd like to do it in 20 minutes, it doesn't make me any more ambitious. If I can run it in 20 minutes and I want to run it in 19, then that's a good aim for myself. We're running our 5Ks in about 21 minutes. That's what it feels like for us. So I would be very wary of equating ambition with the size of a stretch aim, and I urge you to look at that link to see where Inverclyde is, to see where Inverclyde historically has been, and to see what we intend to do in the future, because we are confident in our ability to take the service forward. And we're also very, very pleased with how we are currently sitting. So please do follow that link into 3.6. What I would also say about the consultation for the Education Appeal Committees in 3.15, we currently have our appeal committees. We try and run them as soon as we possibly can, but this legislative cut-off is the 20th of April for when we have to make all decisions. And so we have, once the decisions are made to place into schools, the legal service team get the appeals heard as quickly as possible, because we want parents to be settled in the decisions made on their child's schooling. Typically, we will be working through the beginning of, well, from May to the beginning of June for education appeals. Some authorities run them later. Some authorities will run them to the end of June. So that's the time scale we can run it. We, as a service, do not see how that appeal process could be turned around quickly if it goes to the tribunals. So the danger is, as it says in the response, is that we could be coming back to school not knowing the sizes of the classes. Now, what that means in reality is if you have 10 classes in a primary school and 2 extra children get places, we're creating 11 classes. That's not 2 children who are being replaced, it's every child in that school who has to change classes. So it has a big implication if we don't get those decisions made in time. We're also really concerned about the ability and the formality of the process for the people who are attending it, and placing request for appeals are a difficult process for parents to go through, and we handle them with sensitivity. If it's held into the more formal process, we feel that may put off, especially parents who are not used to this kind of system. It will put off people appealing. So please do have a look at the response we put in, because we do feel as a service, both education and legal, very strongly about the ability of the tribunal service to take this forward.
Yeah, I think it was a robust response, something I was going to say. I've got Francesca and then Liz, Lynn, and then Kirsten.
Thanks very much. Just on 3.14 now, no comparisons are obvious, and we don't, the industry won't like tables or benchmarking, so, but still the link was there, so aware there, and it's great that Inverclyde is in the top thirds, because we're post-pandemic, as we've heard a lady today, it's still going on, it's really challenging backdrop. And I think that the fact that we are at that position is testament to the commitment and dedication of our workforce, the teaching and support staff, many of whom will have recently been involved in or continue to be involved in industrial action at the moment. So that was really worth noting. Jim, if you don't mind, I'm going to be a wee bit cheeky as well, just because today's the 24th of January. I've been trying to find the link, and I think the link is that here we're looking at local and national initiatives in education. I just want to very briefly mention an international element, because today's the 24th of January, it's UNESCO Day of International Education, with a focus on Afghanistan, where girls and women, like the girls and women living in Inverclyde, won't have any chance to get to school, university or work. I was at a conference on Saturday where they said try and raise that wherever you are, and I'm here today at the Education Committee, so I just feel like I have to, so thanks very much for your time.
I think that's fair enough. I for my part, I feel as if the West in general have let down the women and girls of Afghanistan. There's no doubt about that. They're just went away with them. That's my view on it. I think we can all agree on that. And I feel really bad about that. I feel as if we've led people off to a lot and we've just left them.
We ran away.
We did. So thank you for that. Sorry, it was Liz next, Liz.
A few things. I completely agree with what Ruth was saying about stretching this. You know, you get to the point where you're going, the gains have to be marginal gains because you've done the legwork. You've kind of, I'm not disclosing what my 5K time would be. But you know, you've kind of done that kind of the big work to get the big gains, and then it does need to become, you know, sort of gradual gains after that. And I think we need to not just accept that, but understand that and actually celebrate that as well, because a significant amount of work has been done. We sat at the task force yesterday and we saw a figure that has been in my head since. You know, 9% of the population of Inverclyde don't have any qualifications, and it's 9% too many. But 15, 20 years ago, I remember reporting on figures where it was 20%. 20% of the adult population of Inverclyde didn't have any qualifications. That's a big gap to have filled in 10 years, 20 years, 15, 20 years. You know, but the next 15, 20 years, we're not going to have that level of gap closure. But we've done a huge amount of work, and I think this is another example of that. We've got to kind of really kind of grasp the context of where we are and what the future means. Which doesn't mean no lack of ambition, it doesn't mean no striving for excellence in any way, shape or form. Next thing I want to kind of bring up was the education qualification reform update. I love our education system. I love that it looks at young people beyond their learning. You know, we look at young people holistically as citizens and people in the entirety of who they are. But then we have a system at the minute that still uses that point of examination as pretty much the pinnacle of what they can or can't do. And I still feel it misses the trick for so many of our young people. It's just not the measure. You know, back to the whole jungle animals all standing lined up, and the measure of success is whether you can climb a tree. So the monkey absolutely rocks it, and the hippos go what? You know, so it's I really hope that we as a nation really grasp the opportunity. And I don't know what other people have said, I know what I've said, but I don't know what other people have said in response to consultation. But I'm wondering if we can get a report back to committee just in terms of as this progresses, because we need to be ahead of what this means and what comes out of this and what the context is moving forward for Inverclyde schools. And I didn't say book club. Sorry, is there an issue with me contributing?
Sorry?
Is there an issue with me contributing?
No.
Okay, I thought there was a groan.
No, I'm enjoying what I'm hearing.
That's okay. The Education Appeal Committee, again, just like...
If I'm groaning, you would know that.
Well, I thought I did know. The response that was put in on behalf of the authority, I completely concur with. You know, not only do we have to deal with things with dignity and the kind of way that we deal with things in Inverclyde, but there's a proximity issue as well. We can't have this done far away from the people of Inverclyde, so I think that's the right thing to do. And the final thing I want to say is about something that's not in here, but I would just wondering where we are with it. I'm just aware that we still don't have a parent member for the committee, and I'm just wondering where we are with the recruitment of a parent member, which is a class that is a local initiative.
Yeah, okay, and moving on to, I suppose the point is getting the report back, we can agree to that. If Diane keeps me right, to make sure it was in the recommendations, not the previous one, and we want to.
What we'll continue to do is bring reports back on the whole of the education and qualification reform, because I think we'll move now possibly at different speeds. The look at the SQA and HMI and the inspectorate versus the education service will probably move fairly quickly. I think the what comes out of what the curriculum reform will look like may move at a different space. But we will keep bringing this update back and telling you where to find the information on pertinence and the parent member. So we are still seeking a parent member. I am doing my best. People now won't sit down and make me because they realise I'm going to try and co-opt them. People, we're speaking to the willing few as well. People are already the chairs of the parent council, so they've already given up a significant amount of time. And the most recent parent who was considering it and just said no. It's going to be. I'm doing a lot for the parent council. This is going to be too much on top. But please, if you do know anybody or you have any volunteers, yes, please. We've got regular meetings with chairs of parent councils, and we will keep trying.
Okay, bring Lynn in next, Lynn.
Yeah, thanks. It's just a point under 3.15. It just seems bizarre to me that that is being considered. And I'm struggling to find the rationale for that, because the response isn't just, no, we would like to keep it, but here's a few changes. It's a case of, no, it's fine, and we don't even want to change it, which shows how well it's working. It's like, it's no broke, so don't fix it. So I'm really struggling to find out what is it purely cost, or but actually if that move takes place and then it becomes more costly because the timeframes are so stretched out that I'm not using that word stretched. I've used that too much today. That will actually cost in the long run. So I'm trying to struggle to see what is the rationale when there's such a strong opinion against.
Somebody say centralisation. Sorry.
I share your opinion, and the initial document with the feelings that people felt that the provision was too formal, that it was that they didn't feel that it was fair. The numbers, I was thinking about I didn't know how those numbers work, so I am struggling to see the rationale as put forward in the paper itself. And to be clear, there will be a huge additional cost to the country on this. We have education appeals for free because it's local members. Now there is a counter argument, of course, if you're a local member, it's not the most pleasant thing to sit on the Educational Appeals Committee. And there is that counter argument, and appeal tribunals are set up as tribunals. I'm used to hearing that. But absolutely, I think the rationale for this has not clearly been set out, and I don't even understand where they got the data from, to be honest.
Yeah, because obviously when you look at these things, sometimes you think, well, is it a benefit, to the parents or to the pupils? Is there a benefit somewhere else to someone else that we as an intern don't see? But actually, the fact, purely as a parent, you want that appeal done as quickly as possible because of the timescale. You don't want to be going for the holidays and your child is unsure where they're going after the summer. That's actually a nightmare for everyone. So really they need to be done swiftly. As it is, timescale is really, really important. So yeah, there's no answer to that, and it's a bit worrying, actually.
Can I bring Kirsty in, and then it's Natasha?
Thank you. Firstly, I would just like to congratulate the staff and children at Craig Marlock and the Rainbow Family Centre for their great results, like the inspectorate. And just to extend that a bit further and thank you, Ruth, and all the educational officers and the teachers and staff around Inverclyde for the work that you're doing to achieve such high standards in our education setting. So I want to say that. But my question is on this consultation that I fully endorse your position taken as well on it. Have you got any indication how this is likely to go on other authorities' opinions? Like, I take it this might be across the board. People are objecting to it, or?
So, I've spoken to Chair of Innovation. We know that Addis have given a very strong response to say that exactly the points I'm making. And I know that the solicitors are also looking at it and putting in an equally strong response, mainly around workload, because if solicitors are going to quite formal appeals, the amount of paperwork needed for each one can be extraordinary. And you can't predict numbers because it depends on how the classes come. So you'll probably speak to the fact that go in multiples of 20. So you could be turning down one place of request, or you could be turning down 18. All of whom are entitled to appeal. So you can't say from year to year we would tend to have an amount, because it can depend on how you staff your schools. But absolutely, I haven't come across anybody else who thinks this is a good idea in my profession. So
thank you.
Yeah, it's fine. All means fine. Yeah.
We convener. I just thought it might be relevant. The only thing, or the only rationale I can think on the part of the Scottish Government is that if there is an appeal, if it is transferred to the tribunal service and there's an appeal, then the appeal would be to the upper tribunal and it wouldn't be an appeal to the Sheriff Court. So I suppose that's a significant difference. It doesn't really tend to be a problem in this area because we've really had very few appeals from the Education Appeal Tribunal.
Thanks, Anne. Can I bring Natasha?
Yeah, thank you. Quite a lot of what I was going to say has already been said. Francesca and I were at the same thing on Saturday, so I was going to bring up the UNESCO International Day of Education, but I'll try not to repeat what my colleagues have already said. One of my questions that I had was actually around the Care Inspectorate inspection outcomes. We've got there obviously the ones from Craig Marlett and Rainbow, which is really comforting to see that the Care Inspectorate rates them as being very good, because we obviously want the best for our children and young people. Do we get information from private providers for those that we possibly fund places for, or do we not fund places for any private providers that then get inspected by the Care Inspectorate?
I see Michael's got his hand up, but if we're in partnership with a provider, they have to that we get the Care Inspectorate, but also they have to look at a certain grade to be able to come into partnership with the local authority. But Michael, I don't know if you had more to add to that.
No.
No, just to say that we're made aware of all private providers. They usually do let us know that they've had an inspection, so we are aware of it. And as Ruth says, those that we are funding, where we have a contract with them, not only is about the grades, but meeting the national standard, and that's something that obviously we monitor, and where it falls short of that, we provide supports and challenge to ensure that we get that service back to good again.
Okay, I've got follow-up questions. Sorry, I've got other questions as well. Sorry, Jim. I've got two more points, sorry. So the one was just, I want to echo what Elizabeth said around like what our education is like for our young people, about setting realistic stretch aims. I think it was quite difficult for us as an education authority to actually set that. We want to make sure we're setting realistic aims so that we're not disappointing our children and young people, especially when we are performing above our weight. And my final point was just on the tribunal service. I agree with what Lynn said. Where's the benefit for this? We can already see that our court systems are stretched at the moment. And when I'm looking at our response and what they were looking for, all that I can see here is that would cause duplication, slow down the process for parents, and ultimately cause chaos when compared to our current process. So I really support what we're looking to submit as part of the consultation. Thanks, Jim.
Okay, thanks, Natasha. I guess in summing up, you've got the overwhelming support with regard to the consultation and transfer of tribunals. With regard to all the analogies of stretch aims, I thought before we end I would put my own analogy in. Just because I climbed Ben Nevis last year, it doesn't mean to say I'm going to put a stretch aim and try and climb Mount Everest this year. And I'd be very lucky if I could climb Ben Nevis this year, because I'm a lot less fit than I was before. So I think having any positive stretch aim is incredible. And I think of the work we're actually doing, I think we're all commending Michael, yourself, and our educational team and the work they do in our schools. We always hear about our comparable schools, we're doing well compared to our comparable schools. We're doing well compared to every school in Scotland, or every educational authority in Scotland, and long may it continue. So well done all. And you can agree to what they can do.
Yeah,
great. On the report back, I think Ruth's going to, it's going to be part and updating. That's okay. So we're going to get regular updates now. And thanks again. Keeping it right. And with that, we move on to the next agenda item, which is the outcome of the pre-consultation, the future leadership of Glenmore Nursery. Now, is that Michael's going to take that one? Michael?
Yep, you convener. So you'll recall that previously at committee we had asked for permission to carry out an informal consultation process on the leadership of Blairmore Nursery School, and committee had approved that, and that was carried out over mainly the month of November, end of October. And the report summarises basically the outcome of that. Committee will remember that we had taken forward basically 3 proposals as part of that informal consultation. That's outlined at 3.3 in the report. The hope being that one of those we would sort of settle on through sort of consensus and take forward then a formal consultation should one be required, because obviously one of the options was essentially the status quo of the nursery remaining as a school. The report outlines again the process we went through and seeks to summarise the outcome of that process. So we had face-to-face meetings with key stakeholders, parents and staff in both Blairmore Nursery School and All Saints Primary School, given that one of the proposals was to create change Blairmore Nursery School into a nursery class as part of All Saints. We had an online consultation process as well, outlined at 3.9. We had a pretty healthy response to that process, and what we tried to do at 3.11 is summarise the key themes of feedback that we got against the 3 options. It was clear at 3.10 that there was a majority view that we should strongly consider retaining a standalone establishment but changing it from the status of a nursery school to a standalone early learning centre. So in reviewing all the feedback that we received, in having that face-to-face dialogue with staff and stakeholders, reading through the feedback, the service is of the opinion that we should move to take forward the option of establishing a standalone early learning centre, and that we would now therefore need to carry out a formal consultation, which is outlined at 4.0, giving you the overview of that process, the length of the consultation, and we will be taking forward only one consultation option, which is to essentially close nursery, Blairmore Nursery as a school and establish it as an early learning centre. And the hope would be that we would back the committee with the outcome of that, because obviously it's a statutory consultation, it's a formal consultation, which is different from the informal process we've been through, and therefore we have to engage with Education Scotland as part of that, so that we would hope to be back with a full outcome of that process to committee by the 9th of May. And so in this report, we're asking that you approve the commencement of a formal consultation process with key stakeholders of Blairmore Nursery School for it to become a standalone early learning centre under the leadership of a head of centre. And we've attached as Appendix 1 the formal proposal paper that would take that forward, which is attached to the document here. Happy to take any questions.
Thanks, Michael. I'll open up to any questions. Can't see anything online. Lynn?
Awkward place here. Yeah, just a couple of points. So I just noted that the meeting there were less than 5 parents, so and also the response 47 people, 15% of staff. So there was quite a low response rate. So I'm just wondering, when it comes to the actual next part of the consultation process, is there a minimum that you need to be reached, or it's just a case of you had your chance and you didn't take it? And just my second point is on the actual appendix. So under question 1, I assume that needs to be reworded. It's got like the nursery on it, but also I think it's Pam, I think we used this the last time. It makes reference to a standalone family centre, and we've called it now a early learning centre. So I just think it needs to be firmed up on which terminology we use, just to ensure it's consistent.
But if you want to comment on both things, how the
Yes.
minimum response and also.
So yes, we'll get the consultation paper amended, and also yes, taking on board the family centre and early learning centre, and I'll leave it up to Michael which one he settles with. The reason, and when we started the informal consultation, there were probably two favoured ones from us as a service. One was either teaching it to the school, or the other was to have a standalone family centre. And we were genuinely open to what people felt about that. So actually the comments as to why people felt strongly one way or the other were useful to us in taking forward just one proposal. And you can only go to statutory consultation really on one proposal, because people need to know what, if we're shutting a school, what are we opening in its place. So I think there's no minimum, there's no maximum, and the pre-consultation isn't part of the statutory process anyway. We just wanted to get a feel for what people were thinking. So there's no surprises when we go into statutory consultation. So we wouldn't expect any surprises. We hope we've listened to people, and there's no minimum. We've been at consultation meetings where we've had no people turn up, and we've been at ones where we've had 30 to 50 people turn up.
So, Caitlin?
Yeah, great. It's just a wee request for a proofread. Page 75, and top of it is talking about Glenveagh Nursery School, rather than Glenmore. So just a wee, before it goes out, just a wee proofread.
I think one.
Did you see that? Are you not listening?
Wait, you know
It's not anything I've ever just said. It's anything I've all my contributions. It's great minds think alike.
Can I point out to Michael that we mentioned Glenveagh Nursery?
Oh, listen, it's been a long life.
You got me the fault is mine. I don't. And that's what husband told me and say with all wonderful, but you have just got the wrong name of the nursery.
Agree. I can't say anything in the paper. I can't say anything. I agree with it.
Agree.
And I thank you very much for their attendance today.
Thank you.
Thank you.